Hey, Greg, thanks for your time. Hope all's well down there.
Thanks, Stephen.
I know he's not in your camp now, but I was wondering if you could comment on Matthew Hope. I think I'm pronouncing that right. What he did over the weekend, what his future is with your team, and also maybe some thoughts on what Zach Steffen's been doing the last week or two.
Yeah, it's been great watching a lot of the Americans playing abroad. Zach Steffen in his last games had 3 shutouts, had some really big wins away from home. I'm really proud of him and how he's adapted and how he's fit into what they do. He looked really confident on the ball, and overall made the saves he had to make. So it was really positive performances. With Matthew, it's been fun. Just seeing an American, do that, score a hat trick in the Bundesliga. It hasn't been done before. So it's really a historic time for Matthew and for all American soccer players. It's great to see that. But specifically about his performances, what I really liked is the transition moments, the moments when Schalke won the ball, space behind the defense. He was able to really take advantage of that, really clever movement. And then when he got in the position to score goals, he finished them off with cleverness and really good effort.
Thanks, Stephen. And next we'll go to Brian Strauss from Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Brian.
I realize it's a different group of players for the most part, but once again, we're sort of at a fraught time to be representing the country. And I was wondering if there was a sequel to Be the Change planned. Have you had conversations with the group about what happened last week, about the inauguration, about what it will mean to represent the country at the end of the month, considering everything that's going on, or is that something that you're not going to wade into with this group? Thanks.
No, I think it. I mean, I think there is a conversation to be had. We haven't had it yet, but I think with anything, our efforts don't stop. When the year ticks over. The efforts need to be consistent and they need to keep going. And the way I see this is a low point for us. There's a lot of room to improve as a country, and it's something where we can all be better examples. We could all be better citizens. And when you're watching that, it doesn't jibe at all with what we know as America to be. It's not who we are as a country, and it's disappointing to see. But all we can do is be good examples and continue our efforts in trying to be change, in trying to make change. And so I think that's the important message to the team is that our work isn't done just because the year changed. We need to keep going and persevere with all of our efforts.
Next will be Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Paul.
You mentioned Zach's performances, the shutouts of Manchester City. Obviously, you were able to work closely with him in Columbus as well as now with the national team. And I wonder your perspective, having scouted him before you brought him to Columbus, what you saw from him as a young goalkeeper and what you're seeing from him now in Manchester City and maybe the growth that's occurred and maybe some of the qualities that put him on the radar of a club like Manchester City in the first place.
Zach has when I first saw him play, the one thing I noticed was just the power and the speed. Getting to shots really easily, getting to crosses really easily, and just a really explosive goalkeeper. We saw that there was a good enough base, technical base that we could really develop him with his feet. But I think first and foremost, as a shot stopper, as a power goalkeeper, defending his penalty box, he was excellent. And those are qualities that we set out to improve when he was in Columbus, and it was a lot of work on Zach's part to get better, a lot of trust that needed to be there because there are going to be mistakes at times. But when you see him, I was really, really proud against Chelsea watching him play and how he easily controlled build up. They built, he moved out to the side to build with a 4, and Chelsea was pressing. He was bypassing their forward to find a central midfielder who had time to turn. So it was a really, I thought, mature performance. And what I've noticed now, that he really did take the next step in terms of maturity, composure. The Bundesliga helped him develop, and now he's in a place where he's even taken another step. And you can see that with his play. Very calm, very collected, and he's still a young goalkeeper.
Next will be Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey Greg, how are you?
Hey, Ron.
As you look at between now and September and qualifying starts, aside from just generally playing better, what are some of the specific areas you would like to see advancement in among the player pool?
So, I still think collectively, we want to be better defining how we're finishing attacks. We want that to be more clear in games. We want the runs to be more clear in the penalty box, the service to be, more clear depending on the positions we're in. I think that's going to be really important. And then, the next step, which is always important in qualifying, is transition moments. Both offense and defense, we can continue to improve, and that's going to be something we focus on.
We'll go to Ivan Skolarsep from SBI Soccer.
Greg, I wanted to ask you about obviously this year the Under-20 World Cup was canceled. CONCACAF Under-20 qualifying has been canceled. Does that in the kind of the grand scheme of things for you and your plans? How does that affect anything? Obviously, that group has a lot of talent in it. Does that affect your plans at all? And somewhat related, Owen Otasoe, someone who you had in your last camp, and now he's really kind of started to get some chances at Wolves. What did you think of what you saw from him when you had him in camp, and where do you see him positionally for you in your plans?
Owen has a really interesting skill set, really powerful, really physical, good technically, and for him it's just a case of getting on the field and playing more. Even the club or himself trying to define his position, they don't know because there's not enough big enough sample size. So for him, it's just going to be about getting on the field, getting this body of work to then really fine tune where he can be most effective. But just ton of talent, really good base to build with for sure. In terms of that under-20 group, it's a shame. I think you feel for both the U17 group and the U20 group that they're not going to get to participate in a World Cup. You think it's a missed opportunity to compete at the international level in a World Championship. That builds experience, that builds composure when you're playing in international events in the future. So it's a shame. Both U.S. Soccer, MLS has done a great job of developing players in these last 10 years, and it's a shame that this group is going to miss out on that.
We go to Kevin Baxter from the LA Times.
Hey, Greg, thanks for taking some time to speak with us. Hope you're well.
Thanks, Kevin.
Following up on the first couple of questions about Zach and Matthew and just all the players in Europe, actually. You played there, you've been there talking to the players. What do you think is the most important thing that a European experience does for a player? Is it playing with better players, the training environment? People have talked about the fact that it's such a soccer environment that if you lose a big game, you can't leave your apartment for a week, whereas in the U.S., it's not quite that serious. Is it all of that? What do you think is the big thing that these players are getting from being over there?
Yeah, I think, one thing to keep in mind, Kevin, is that, these leagues have been established for years, hundreds of years, 100 years. And the culture, there's a culture of soccer, and we're we have a very young soccer culture here that's developing. But there is something to be said for, just being enveloped in soccer culture, whether that's, every night is live soccer on television. You go to training in the day, everyone's talking about it in the public. At night, the games are on. So you're really, it's all around you, and you can't escape it. And I think that's a positive. It's also sometimes a negative, but there certainly is that the attention towards soccer, which helps drive the popularity, drive the pressure to compete and really perform. I think you have that in the MLS. It's just different because we are such a young soccer culture in America.
Next will be Julia Poe from the Orlando Sentinel.
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for the time. I wanted to touch on these Orlando City players that are in camp. For the three guys that were in the last camp with Daryl and Chris and Andres, what are you looking from them in terms of just how to build on these two call-ups? And then for Benji Michel, what did you see in him, and how are you maybe kind of looking to see him fit into either of these groups?
Yeah, so I think that will be a better question. At least Benji will be a better question for Jason to answer tomorrow. But for us, it's getting a look at him. Seeing we know he has really good physical capacity. We know he's really fast. It'll be nice to see how he can interpret his position in our system. So we're looking forward to that. But Jason can shed more light on that tomorrow. Regarding the others, it was fun to work with them in the last camp. I think they all did what they needed to do to get invited back. I think when you talk about Darryl, we didn't get to see him play in the game because of an injury, but it was nice working with him. Really physical presence. We want to keep trying to discover how he can interpret the role as a forward and how he makes it a little bit different than the other guys. Chris, we really liked his movement behind the back line. We liked his relentless effort in the game. And Andres, unfortunately, didn't get to play, but we saw a lot in training, and we really are interested in him and want to keep him around to keep learning and developing in our system.
Next will be Doug McIntyre from Yahoo.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Gregg. How are you? Happy New Year.
Hey, Doug. Thank you.
I'm curious, with a smaller group, just 12 senior players, how that changes how you operate this week. I mean, what are you doing that's a little different than if you had a group that was a bit bigger? And just curious if you had any update on Weston McKennie, getting subbed out of the game the other day. I know you like to defer to the clubs, but can you share anything in terms of how serious his injury might be? Thank you.
We don't have definitive answer yet. I have speculation. I wouldn't want to communicate that just because I'm not sure of the accuracy of that information. But in terms of the group, it's out of necessity. We do have two groups in camp, and we're split for most of the camp. Meals are split, team building activities are split, but training is one time where we actually can compete together, and that's where we are working together to make numbers, and we're able to focus a little bit more on our 12 players, but the whole group is there. The whole group is working together, and it's great for both coaching staffs to be able to assess the players and see some of the comparisons in camp.
Next will be Charles Bone from MLS Soccer.
Hi, Gregg. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Charles.
I know we talked about this busy 2021 for so long, and now it's finally here, and it's not the first time you've been asked this type of question, but as the work ahead gets closer and closer, it seems to become more and more intense with the 3-game windows and all the different aspects you guys have to manage with the length of the player pool or the depth. Could you give any insight into sort of, as we're in the year now, what that looks like? I mean, how do you handle so many different moving parts with your roster at any given time, selection, fitness, a player like Jordan, for example, who, he has Christian maybe on paper in his first choice in his preferred position, but I'm sure you're going to need both of those guys whenever they're available as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to keep everyone engaged and everyone on the same page and everyone up to speed with what we do and how we want to play. And so far, because we've seen these two groups, because we worked with the European guys and now a lot of domestic guys in December and again in January, I think we're able to tie that together nicely and really have a good idea of the player pool. I think that's what it comes down to, just having a real good understanding of what the player pool looks like, that when we need to make the difficult decisions, when it comes to qualifying, we get it right, because it's absolutely crucial that we have our strongest teams, that we have enough depth, and that we're able to to perform at a high level in qualifying. But in terms of Nations League and Gold Cup, those are two events where there's trophies awarded, and we want to compete to win them. There's no question about it, and that will give us one final opportunity before qualifying to test guys and put them under pressure to perform.
We'll do a couple more with Gregg, and then we'll move on to Jordan. So we'll go to Emily Olson.
Thanks, Michael. Kind of coming off of that last question, you look at, say, like a Tristan Blackman and him getting his first chance at the camp. How many players do you feel like in the last string of camps you've been able to see that pool and really finalize it? And are there some outstanding players that are still have a chance of making it into the consistent pool that you're talking about, or is it pretty much finalized?
No, I think the thing about the national team is it's always in a state of fluidness. Like you always need to prove yourself. You always need to keep performing at high levels. I mean, that's what the national team is. So I would say there's not many players that could not play for the next year and be involved in qualifying. It's going to be important that the players are fit, that they're performing at high levels. For us to use them in qualifying. I think what this time has done, it has given us a chance to see a large portion of the player pool. Any of the players that we haven't seen, we're still keeping an eye on, and we're still watching them and watching their performance week in and week out. So it's never going to be too late for a guy. But overall, I think it's been a good, productive 2 years of getting to know the player pool and seeing where we're at with the talent that we have.
Last question for Gregg will come from Donald Wine from Stars and Stripes.
Hey, Gregg, good to see you.
Hey,
question
Donald.
about the end of camp. I know that you guys are having a joint camp. The U23s will at one point break, leaving the men's national team to be there for a week. I know you're talking about integrating some of the U23s and keeping them on. Is there any guys that are not in either camp right now that you are looking at to possibly bring in for that final week of training?
I don't think so. I think going into the last week of training before the game will be made up of players that are here in camp. I wouldn't rule it completely out, but my guess is that the roster for the game on the 31st will be made up of players that are in this camp. It's a really intensive time of working together. We'll be training for 3 weeks before the game, and it's nice to reward the players that have been here with the opportunity to compete in an international fixture.